Good morning and welcome to Market Cafe with me Ankur, Mishra and Kanishka. Sarkar, an action-packed overnight actually, and we will bring you all the details from US to oil to all the news that matters to you in next 1 hour. Good morning Kanishka. Action-packed day in US actually, but muted market.
That's right. Now, before we discuss all the action that has happened on the tariff front, let's see how the markets performed. Before that, the US stocks did come off a lackluster session overnight. The S&P 500 ended almost just a little more than 0.5% lower, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq index that lost about 0.5%, whereas the Dow that fell 245 points or more than 0.5%. Now, Nvidia shares were in focus yesterday. Now, they jumped nearly 5% in after-hours trading. The chipmaker exceeded expectations of the top and bottom lines in the first quarter as its data center business recorded year-on-year growth of 73%. Meanwhile, major US indexes are on track to close the week as well as the month higher. The S&P 500 and Dow are up 1.5% and 1.2% this week, respectively, while the Nasdaq that has rallied nearly 2% this week. The tech sector has seen surge of more than 10% in May. Now, this was fueled by AI announcements from big tech player Alphabet. Apart from that, if you look at the moves this month, the S&P 500 that has gained more than 5.5%. The Dow has added 3.5%, whereas the Nasdaq that has seen a jump of nearly 9.5%. But on the back of the tariff news that we're just about to discuss, Dow futures have jumped 500 points as the court has blocked Trump's tariffs.
Certainly, but also pay attention to Dow futures, which has climbed more than 500 points on the back of the news of a court ruling which has come against Trump administration. We'll talk that in detail later. But even crude edged higher on the news of OPEC nations have decided to hold crude output quotas steady, sticking to their current group-wide production agreement, which was decided in December last year. The alliance, which includes OPEC and non-OPEC producers like Russia, is maintaining formal cuts of 2 million barrels per day through 2026. A separate group of 8 countries is gradually phasing out additional voluntary cuts and will review July output this weekend, which is set to happen on May 30.
That's right. We also have a few events that we should be keeping our eye out for. Now, in India, we have the Nifty expiry today. In US, GDP initial jobless claims data. These two datas are going to be out later in the day. So something to keep an eye out for. Apart from that, we have Bajaj Auto reporting its Q4 earnings today. Apart from that, there are also some cues to watch out for in terms of, Prestige Estates, which is expected to mull fundraising. Varrock Engineering, that is also expected to mull fundraising later in the day. Apart from that, Motherson Sumi Wiring is expected to mull a bonus issue later in the day. Tata Consumer Products is expected to is going to trade ex-dividend today. Now, it's also the last day to buy shares to be eligible for a dividend when it comes to Uno Minda and Infosys, Angel One, Bajaj Finance, as well as GSK Pharma.
Right. As we were talking about earlier, a federal court has struck down Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs, ruling that they exceeded legal authority. The 3-judge panel said Trump overstepped the 1977 Emergency Powers Act, making the tariffs unlawful. The ruling permanently blocks the duties following a lawsuit by 5 US import-reliant businesses. The decision caused several doubts in current negotiations. Through an appeal remains possible. That means the Trump administration actually can go and appeal, and we expect the final ruling may come through Supreme Court there.
That's right. Now, moving on, Elon Musk's time at the Trump administration is over. The Tesla CEO has said in a tweet, he thanked Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending and said that DOGE, that is DOGE mission, will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government. Now, remember, just a few days ago, he had said that Trump's big, beautiful bill undermines the work that DOGE has been doing. Now, some reports suggest that this exit comes right after this criticism.
All right, moving on. Federal Reserve officials remain cautious on rates as minutes from the May FOMC meeting reveal concerns over persistent inflation, which has been talked about, especially if trade tensions and tariff worsen further. While the Fed held interest rates in the latest meeting, members flagged difficult trade-offs ahead of inflation lingers while growth still slows. With the fiscal and trade policy in flux, the Fed reiterated its wait-and-watch approach, saying clarity is needed before future rate moves. Market now expects the earliest rate cut only by September this year.
All right, that's the word coming in as far as FOMC minutes are concerned. Now, let's keep it with the banking action. That's the central bank's action. Now, Bank of Korea has also cut its policy interest rate by 25 basis points amid tariff rules and internal political turmoil. And the Bank of Korea reduced rates to 2.5% from 2.75%. That is its lowest level since August 2022. Now, remember, this is the central bank's fourth cut in the current easing cycle.
All right, let's focus on Nvidia as well, which crushed expectations in the first quarter with revenue surging 69% to $44 billion and data center sales jumping 73%. Even as China export bans shaved off over $2.5 billion is in missed sales and an inventory charge of more than $4 billion. CEO Huang called the China market effectively closed, but said global demand for AI chips remain incredibly strong. But Huang's message was blunt that China will move on with or without Nvidia. Shares rose 4% after hours as Nvidia forecast at $45 billion in Q2 sales.
Right, let's also talk about Salesforce, which reported a strong quarter as well, while sharing an upbeat guidance for the current year. Now, the CEO has announced the company's biggest buy since Slack, which is an $8 billion deal for data firm Informatica. While the shares slipped after hours, analysts say this deal looks more digestible than the past mega mergers, especially after Salesforce trimmed costs, boosted margins, and started paying dividends.
Shifting focus to another earnings, HP shares tank after its earning missed estimates, with adjusted EPS at 71 cents versus expectation of 80 cents. Revenue narrowly beat estimates at $13.22 billion, but outlook disappointed as HP warned of added cost from Trump-era tariffs. CEO Enrique Flores said the company is rapidly shifting manufacturing out of China to mitigate these costs, targeting full offset by Q4 of current financial year.
That's right. Let's also focus on some more news coming in from the US. Now, Donald Trump is rejecting claims that he's soft on tariffs, firing back at critics, calling it taco trade, that is short for Trump always chickens out. Now, in an interview, Trump said, and I quote, "You call that chickening out, it's called negotiation," end quote. Now, this nickname mocks his pattern of announcing tough tariffs like the recent 50% levy on the European Union, only to delay it or reverse it. But Trump insists that the strategy works, saying that the EU agreed to meet any time after his move.
All right, US President Donald Trump has been asking Apple to set up manufacturing in the US instead of India. But will that move be pro-US consumers? And will he be able to shift manufacturing in US so swiftly given how complicated it is to move supply chains? We caught up with one of the world's most highly regarded voices on economy and chief economic commentator of the Financial Times, Martin Wolf, to decode the same. Let's listen into what he had to say.
You cannot move complicated supply chains within a few months. That's completely absurd. It will take years. Furthermore, the reason that Apple produces in Asia, has all been producing in Asia now for a long time, with this addition of the shift to India, is because it's much, much cheaper. There are far more workers willing and able to do this sort of job precisely and accurately. And realistically, they're vastly cheaper than US labor, which is just about the most expensive in the world. So Apple will only do this if they are clear that these high tariffs will remain for the indefinite future. They can't make a plan to build an immensely expensive and complicated supply chain in America if they don't have that certainty. And they can't have that certainty because who knows what the tariffs will be next week, never mind next year or 5 years from now. So it seems to me that the whole plan to move vast amounts of the supply chains from Asia to America is economically irrational, ludicrously costly. And it's also senseless for the businesses because they don't know what the trade policy will be in the near future, let alone the far future. And that will, I think, mean that they will do as little as they possibly can. But of course, if tariffs are high enough, and they know they'll be high enough, then of course they will move, and the consumers in America will have to pay much more for their products.
All right, then Martin Wolf also spoke to us about the recent developments related to US President Donald Trump's tariff policy, which is expected to lead to a slowdown in the US economy and also its impact on India. Let's listen in.
I would guess, and this is really a guess, that there will be greater clarity at the end of this period because the costs for the US of this degree of uncertainty are very large. It affects the markets, it affects the performance of the economy. The people in his administration and in Congress, who do matter a little, will be very anxious about it. And they will say, if we continue like this, our fortunes are going to be really damaged politically in the country. So we got to get clarity on all this. But the problem is there may be some clarity, but it may not deliver what Trump wants. In fact, I'm sure it won't deliver what Trump wants. That being so, given his very unpredictable character, his delight in being unpredictable, he could well start the problems again, perhaps a few months later. Who knows? I'm constantly reminded that in his last term, he did a wonderful deal from his point of view with Canada. And the first thing he did now in this term is blow it up. Now, that's admittedly over quite a substantial period of years. But it's not true with Trump. No deal is ever final. It's quite clear that was how he was in business. That's how he is now. So there may be a degree of predictability, an enhanced predictability at the end of the 90 days. But will it really be predictable? I will be very surprised.
All right, with this, it's time to take a quick break, but don't go away. We'll talk about Asian markets, how they are performing after the break. The break, you're watching Market Cafe with me, Ankur, Mishra and Kanishka Sarkar. Let's take a look how Asia Pacific markets are performing. You can see Nikkei is up more than 1.5%. The news about court blocking the trade deal by US President is actually showing some signs of green signal in the Asian markets, where you see 1.5% on Nikkei. And also yesterday the bond yield sale which happened in Japan actually did not draw any kind of demand, so the yields did rise there. Apart from that, you also see Kospi, how it is performing after Bank of Korea actually cut rates. It's a muted start to the Kospi there, and Shanghai is also on a muted note this morning. You can see flat to positive start with 10 points gain in the beginning. And also if you take a look at Hang Seng, that is also trading around 0.3% higher in the trade. So mixed kind of cues coming in from Asian markets. But important point is about Dow futures, which has actually climbed in the trade after the announcement of news that US trade deal where Trump was paying, Trump was imposing the reciprocal tariffs. So actually, that has been blocked, and that is sending some rejoice to the market. Even Nifty implied open is showing 66 points up currently. So all in all, some kind of green signal given to the market. Let's see how much we hold before opening of the trade, Kanishka.
That's right, green signals coming for the Indian market. Let's also take a look at what MNCs are doing. They're actually cashing in on India from back trimming its ITC stake to speculations of BP exiting Castrol. Multinationals are unlocking billions in their Indian arms. Now, FIIs have also pulled back from large caps like IndusInd and Tech Mahindra, but the Nifty MNC index tells a mixed story. But why are the exits heating up, and is the long-term trend that we are looking at over there? Sharad is here with the analysis.
Well, yes, India is a high growth market, and that is why MNCs are looking at important exits at higher valuations as well. MNCs have been paring stake in their Indian arms. Of course, for ITC, they are not promoter, but the largest investor, British American Tobacco, recently they sold 2.7% stake, now worth being almost 13,000 odd crore rupees. Bharti Airtel Pestel sold almost 1.2%, almost 13,221 crore rupees. And Whirlpool and Hyundai, both of them had exits. Whirlpool, of course, has stated that they would be exiting more of their stake. And Hyundai, recently the IPO came and the parents stole stake of worth almost 17.5%. Also, Castrol, the speculations is of BP exiting, especially the restructuring in the lubricants business. Bajaj Finserv or Bajaj Finance, if you look at it, the alliance is exiting the JV with almost a 26% stake which is being bought back. So that is also a value unlocking coming for the MNCs. And lastly, the LG Electronics IPO, that's expected to range between 11 to 13,000 crore rupees, and the IPO is expected to come in the second half of this financial year. Interestingly, apart from this, FIs have been reducing stake in the large caps, and the current holdings is coming at, of course, 29.55%. That's IndusInd Bank. Almost 17% stake have been sold by FIs over the last 3 years. And also Tech Mahindra, Trent and Kotak Bank. These are the Nifty companies we have seen. There has been a massive sell-off coming when it comes to the FIs. Now let's look at how the Nifty MNC index has formed. There are like 30 stocks where more than 50% is held by foreign ownership, and over here, over the 1 year itself, the gainers, it's Hitachi Energy and Suven Pharma. Now the name is Cohance Life Sciences. Apart from this, United Spirits, Crystal and About India also make it to the list. Now first, let's look at the losers in the MNC space from the Nifty MNC index. We have largely the capital goods and automation names, ABB and Honeywell. Of course, the valuations were a concern in the street. And so, if you include SKF and Timken and even Cummins India, actually entire pack, you see there has been a correction, there has been a rally, and of course the Cummins India came with their numbers also, which was weak. But overall, 1 year itself, there has been a big profit booking in the capital goods space, especially in the MNC part.
All right, Sharad, thank you so much for that analysis. But moving on, factory output for April has managed to surprise on the upside, beating expectations despite a sharp drop compared to last year. April IIP came in at 8-month low of 2.7% versus 5.4% in the same period last year. However, it is much higher than the 1% growth which analysts were penciling in. Manufacturing capital goods saw the strongest performance. On the other hand, mining and electricity were the biggest pain points in the month gone by. We also spoke to our expert Anubhuti Sahai, head of India Economics Research, Standard Chartered Bank. Let's listen into what she had to say.
Yeah, the numbers are definitely much better than expected. We were looking at under 1% growth, and this clearly is on the higher side. If we go by sector basis, obviously the big positive surprise has come from the manufacturing sector. We grew at 3.4%. Here again, we were looking at a growth of closer to 1%. We need to look which industry group, out of the sub-industries which IIP provides. We need to see where the big positive surprise has come from. But if we look at it on the another segregation basis, I think the most important surprise has come from capital goods, which has grown at like a 20%. It's one of the heftiest increase which we have seen at least for full of like FY25, and that is probably one of the most important reasons why we saw this IP number doing so good. Even if we look at the consumer durables number, we thought there would be a little bit of a softening. It has maintained its pace as the month of March. So I think these are the two more important segments which have thrown the positive surprise.
All right, that's the expert word coming in on India's industrial production numbers. But now let's shift focus to the farming sector, which has also received some relief as the centre has raised the minimum support price for all 14 Kharif crops. Now, the government has also extended the interest subvention scheme for 2025 to 2026. Prakash Priyadarshi is here with all the details.
Yeah, it's a confirmation of our news break, as well as the Indian cabinet has taken some significant decisions today in this meeting, where the first decision was taken with regard to MSP for Kharif crops, where the cabinet has approved MSP for Kharif crops for the marketing season 2025-26. So MSP has been increased for almost 13 Kharif crops. It's a very significant development coming in and relief for the farmers. Along with that, the cabinet has also approved the extension of interest subvention scheme for FY26, and the financial outlay of rupees 15,642 crore has been approved by the Union cabinet. That means the farmers will continue to get benefit of interest subvention on a short-term loan up to rupees 3 lakh, a very significant development coming in. Along with that, some infrastructure projects have also been approved by the Union cabinet. Cabinet has given its nod to development of 4-lane Budwell-Nellore highway projects within outlay of rupees 3,653 crore. Along with that, it has given its approval for construction of 2 multi-tracking projects across Indian Railways in Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh. Back to you.
Thanks, Prakash, for keeping ET Now viewers ahead of the announcement of cabinet news. But let's also listen in what Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav had to say on the cabinet approval on extension of interest subvention scheme for FY26.
सेकेंड आज की कैबिनेट अप्रूवल के लिए जो कैबिनेट में अप्रूव हुआ है वो है इंटरेस्ट सबवेंशन स्कीम। आप सब जानते हैं कि किसान क्रेडिट कार्ड जब श्रद्धेय अटल जी प्रधानमंत्री थे तब इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ था। उसके कारण किसानों को वर्किंग कैपिटल मिलना बहुत आसान हुआ। आराम से बहुत ही किसी भी फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन में, बैंक में, कोऑपरेटिव बैंक में, इनमें सब में जाके एक आसानी से लोन मिले, आसानी से वर्किंग कैपिटल मिले, वो व्यवस्था बनी। और उसके कारण बड़ी मात्रा में किसान जो एक इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर था क्रेडिट का, उनके चंगुल से बाहर आया। और इंटरेस्ट सबवेंशन स्कीम के जरिए से किसानों की कॉस्ट ऑफ वर्किंग कैपिटल को कम किया गया है। द कॉस्ट ऑफ वर्किंग कैपिटल हैज बीन रिड्यूस्ड बाय हैविंग दिस इंटरेस्ट सबवेंशन स्कीम। इफेक्टिवली 4% पर 2 लाख रुपए तक का लोन मिले, किसानों को कैपिटल मिले, वो ध्यान रखा गया है इस स्कीम में। 7% नॉमिनल रेट है, उसमें 1.5% सबवेंशन है और 3% है प्रॉम्प्ट रीपेमेंट इंसेंटिव।
All right, that's the word coming in from Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav. But let's take a look at some more updates coming in from the centre. Now, the Consumer Affairs Ministry held a meeting with key e-commerce companies yesterday to combat dark patterns that misled consumers. Now, over 50 companies participated in this meeting. Sameer is here with more details.
The government chaired an important meeting on the issue of dark patterns. Union Consumer Affairs Minister Prahlad Joshi headed this meeting and was attended by approximately 50 companies or the e-commerce entities. Government has clearly conveyed to these companies that they have identified 13 such dark patterns, which included the patterns like disguised advertisement, false urgency. So these sort of patterns, they have been, it has been identified and has been communicated to the e-commerce entities that they need to remove these things that actually influences the choice of consumers, and these all patterns and the trade practices, it falls under the category of unethical trade practice. It is non-transparent, and this actually influences the consumer to make some wrong choices. So that is what government has highlighted in this meeting, and from the stakeholders' point of view, they have also agreed in principle to remove these dark patterns. Government has also proposed to form a joint working committee or the joint working group in coming days with the participation from the stakeholders, and these all will be in the direction to remove the dark patterns. The companies or the e-commerce entities have also been asked to do an internal audit and submit the audit reports to the Consumer Affairs Ministry that what sort of actions they have taken so far. So government has clearly communicated that they are quite serious about these dark patterns. It has to be removed in the interest of the consumers, and the law of the land has to be applicable, and it has to be abided by the e-commerce players. And if not so, some strict action might be taken up in coming months.
Thanks, Samir, for consistently bringing a government action plan on dark patterns. Let's also listen into what Union Minister Prahlad Joshi had to say on dark pattern regulations.
हमने ई प्लेटफॉर्म वाले को ये कहा है full compliance with the dark pattern guidelines, and not just from your own websites, apps, but also for affiliated sellers and the third party merchant hosted on your platform. Or proactive removal of the known dark patterns which have been explained now, and false urgency claims, pre-ticked checkboxes, bait and switch offers, and clear opt-outs and cancellation paths. No consumer should feel trapped in the services or misled into the sharing data or spending more. Consumer-centric डिज़ाइन रिव्यूज़ और ये सब चीज़ के बारे में हमने उनको डिटेल में कहा है, और हमने ये भी कहा है कि जॉइंट वर्किंग ग्रुप के कॉन्स्टिट्यूट करने के बारे में भी हमने प्रस्ताव किया है, और हमने 3 ऐप्स भी डेवलप किया है.
All right, that is what Union Minister Prahlad Joshi had to say about dark patterns. But to understand more on this, we also spoke with our expert Manisha Kapoor, who's the CEO and Secretary General of ASCI. Let's listen in to what she had to say.
Different kinds of sectors and industries had different kinds of prevalent patterns. So, for example, health tech, had 4 out of 5 apps that we studied had false urgency as a pattern. On e-commerce, we found that, most of them, so in fact, 9 apps we studied, all 9 made account deletion very difficult. So these are, quite prevalent in very, very large ways in the market. Even if they're manipulated, it's very difficult for consumers to actually realize that. And I think that is one of the challenges that, it is eventually the apps themselves and the manufacturers and advertisers themselves that need to have apps that are clean, need to look at patterns which allow consumers to make informed choices.
Moving on, industry body of general insurance industry, the General Insurance Council has launched a nationwide campaign called Acha Kiya Insurance Liya to boost awareness about general insurance. This aims at bridging the trust and awareness gap. The campaign uses slice of life stories narrated by pets to humor to explain the importance of securing one's assets. Rolled out across 200 plus rural and semi-urban towns in 12 languages, we caught up with a bunch of top managements of insurance companies to take their take on this scheme. Let's listen in.
Several steps are being taken, right from creating products for different segments, addressing both the benefits and also the pricing issue where affordability is a problem, for example, in the missing middle segment or senior citizens, or it is about the experience piece, which is leveraging technology to improve the experience. And I think campaigns like Acha Kiya insurance liya will only increase not just the awareness about the category, but awareness of the fact that a lot of good is being done by the industry. And so I think, and plus initiatives like state insurance plan going down to the last mile in every state to the Gram Panchayat level, efforts by the government, by the regulator and the industry together. I have no doubt that we not only will we meet this objective of insurance for all, but I think my sense is, my confidence is it will happen even before 2047.
Okay. And sir, when we talk to senior citizens, they have some grievances, they have some complaints about the rise in insurance premium. So how senior citizens can be more satisfied and they can proudly say, "Acha kiya, insurance liya"?
That's a very good and important question, Anurag, because our seniors need insurance at the price that is affordable to them, and I think we have to address it in two ways. One is insurance is a subject where the more people come into insurance, it becomes more affordable for the larger mass and especially seniors. So the younger set of consumers will have to step in, come in, and we have to find a way to bring them in and subsidize to some extent for the seniors.
Brings in a positive story that it's good to have insurance, and actually impacts people. India's economic growth story is at 7% growth. If we all were insured completely, the growth will actually be at 10%, no? Because that makes a difference. So the endeavor is to bring out this side of the story, that it makes a difference to the economy, to society, to people.
How GST reduction can help overall insurance industry?
No, it will, because the price plays an important role. India is a price-sensitive market, and any benefit which comes to the consumer will make a difference. So I'm very hopeful that we should have this soon and it should make a good difference.
Your submission for GST in term insurance, medical insurance, how much it should be?
See, if you ask me, and I've advocated this at a personal level, I always said this, for senior citizens, we actually make it 0. No, because that is where the biggest impact comes in. No, for the rest, if from 18 you bring it to 12 also, it's a good step.
All right, then let's keep it with the insurance space. Now, the finance minister chaired a meeting with public sector general insurance companies. Now, the FM reviewed performance of the general insurance companies, and issues such as premium collections, insurance penetration and incurred claims ratio were reviewed as per sources.
Yes, and more trouble actually mounted for IndusInd Bank as SEBI has passed an ex parte interim order against former MD and CEO of IndusInd Bank, Sumant Katpalia, ex-CFO Arun Khurana, and 3 others. So for those all 5 individuals, the allegation is that they had unpublished price sensitive information beforehand as early as December 2023, and there were trades, meaning they sold the shares of IndusInd Bank to the tune of rupees 20 crore. So that kind of loss has been assessed by the market regulator, and hence they have been asked to stay away from market, and also their demat accounts will be freezed. So why this action was taken by market regulator? We understand that ever since there was a disclosure by the bank on 10th of March that there is a discrepancy in the derivatives portfolio, and the impact could be around 2.35% as per the assessment of the bank. The market regulator came into action. They assessed the information from the bank, from the agencies, and after that there were emails which were found where we have seen one of the instances that regulator says the MD and CEO of then Mr. Sumant Katpalia did mention there is going to be a serious impact of this kind of discrepancy which has been found in the bank, and there is a lapse which was identified by the management, but it was disclosed only in March 2025. So the total assessment period is between December 2023 to 10th of March 2025, and now the individuals will be given time to submit their views to SEBI. 15 days have been given to give all the details, and final order will be passed by market regulators soon.
That's right. Now moving on, the Lokpal on graft complaints against ex-SEBI chief Madhavi Puri said that the allegations against her are untenable, unsubstantiated and bordering on frivolity. Now, the Lokpal has given a clean chit to Butch. The Lokpal concluded that based on the presented evidence and legal principles, the complaints were devoid of merit and did not establish a cognizable offence or a basis for investigation against her. Serious allegations of conflict and interest and financial misconduct were leveled against the ex-SEBI chief by US short seller Hindenburg Research. That's for your reference. But with that, it's time to slip into a very short break. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more news and updates coming up on the other side.
Market Cafe with me, Ankur, Mishra and Kanishka, Sarkar. Let's once again take a look how Asian markets are performing. In fact, it is a sea of green for Asian market ever since the ruling of court came against Trump tariffs. You can see Japan's Nikkei is now inched more than 1.5%. Similarly, if you talk about the other Asian peers, there is a sigh of relief kind of a rally which is coming in. Kospi is of course the only one in the pack which is down on its own news because there is a presidential election which is set to happen in 4 to 5 days. So Kospi is down around 0.5% there, but Shanghai is now inched 0.5% up after a muted opening. Similarly, you can see in our markets as well, there you can see Hang Seng is also inching towards positive territory, but Nifty implied open is also now up 81 points against when we started the show it was showing a muted opening. So all in all, the positive kind of signal coming in to Asian peers as well as our own Nifty implied open ever since the court ruling has come against Trump tariffs. But moving on, in a significant development within the Tata Group, N. Chandrasekaran, the chairman of Tata Sons, has stepped down as chairman and director of Tata Chemicals. This will be effective May 29, 2025. This decision was communicated through a regulatory filing where Chandrasekaran cited need to reevaluate his current and future commitments as the reason of his resignation, which was published by the company. S. Padmanabhan, the currently serving director on Tata Chemicals, will be appointed as new chairman effective May 30, and Padmanabhan brings extensive experience from his roles within Tata Group, including leadership positions in Tata Power and Tata Sons earlier.
That's right, Ankur. In fact, there's another cue to watch out for when it comes to the Tata Group. Now, Tata Sons will hold its quarterly board meet to discuss performance of group companies. That's the requirement to list as per RBI norms and other concerns as well. Anurag Joshi is here to tell us all that we should expect from this meeting.
Tata Sons, the holding company of the Tata Group, is convened its quarterly board meeting on Thursday. Now, the board meeting of Tata Sons will review the holding company's financial performance and also take stock and review the performance of all the companies in the Tata Group, and notably some of the companies which the parent wants to improve their performance. One of the key things that is likely to come up in the board meeting is the listing plan of Tata Capital, and also the negotiations about seeking a waiver for Tata Sons from doing an IPO. Now, Tata Capital has recently pre-filed confidentially its draft red herring prospectus with SEBI and stock exchanges for an IPO, and it is progressing on that plan. But for Tata Sons, the holding company, they had earlier sought a waiver from listing their shares, but that last year that was declined by the Reserve Bank of India. So that is a matter that is likely to come up for discussion. Notably, also the board meeting will discuss the performance of some of the units which like Tata Teleservices and its AGR dues, and also Tata Digital, which the parent wants to pull up its performance, especially some of the platforms like Big Basket, which it wants to catch up with the other peers. Tata Sons had reported a profit after tax of 34,654 crore rupees in FY24. And just last year, Ratan, after the passing away of the patriarch Ratan Tata, Noel Tata, who's the Tata Trust chairman, Tata Trust owns 66% stake. So he had assumed the position as a director on the board of Tata Sons.
Thanks, Anurag Joshi, for bringing all those details, and we will keep an eye on Tata Sons board meet with the important question on the forthcoming IPO, which has been mandated by the regulator. But our colleague Ravinder is actually ready with a list of stocks to watch today before market opening. Ravinder, over to you.
Well, as on back of earning, Natco Pharma can be in focus, where company has announced its Q4 earning, and company revenue saw an uptick of 14.5% year-on-year basis. And if we talk about PAT, then net profit saw an uptick of more than 5% year-on-year basis. And if we talk about EBITDA margins, then EBITDA margins saw a decline of more than 250 basis point year-on-year basis. Moving to next, Deepak Nitrate can be in focus on back of Q4 earning, where company revenue saw an uptick of 14.5% quarter-on-quarter basis. And if we talk about net profit, then company's net profit has increased from 98 crore to 202 crore on a quarter-on-quarter basis, and margin saw an uptick of more than 500 basis points on a sequential basis. Apart from this, on week of Q4 earning, Bata India can be in focus, where company's revenue saw a decline of more than 1% year-on-year basis. And if we talk about net profit, then net profit also declined by 28% on a year-on-year basis, and company's margins also saw a decline of 20 basis point year-on-year basis. Moving to next, Party Cruiser can be in focus, where company's revenue saw an uptick of 81% year-on-year basis at rupees 116 crore in FY25 as compared to 64 crore in FY24, and PAT was saw an uptick of 33% at rupees 8.4 crore, and company's FY24 EBITDA was 31 crore, and now it has increased to 62 crore in FY25. Apart from this, Prestige Estate can be in focus, where company has completed 3 landmark projects in Mumbai, delivering over 800 units across 2.8 million square feet. Apart from this, rights can be in focus, where company has signed a MOU with Shree Cement Limited for development of rail infrastructure and allied services. Moving to next, LTI Mindtree can be in focus, where Armaco Digital and LTI Mindtree has launched a next era, a next gen IT services company in Saudi Arabia. And lastly, Adani Energy can be focused, where board meet is scheduled to held on 31st May to consider fundraise.
All right, thank you, Ravinder, for getting us all those stocks that are expected to buzz in trade today. But let's move on and take a look at earnings. Now, SAIL has reported a very strong Q4 earnings results, now beating street estimates. Ashesha is here to do all the number crunching for us.
Well, yes, SAIL has reported very strong set of numbers, much better than what the street was working with. And although realizations have dipped both on a sequential and on a year-on-year basis, volume growth has been very strong this time around, and that is what aided numbers for SAIL in the quarter gone by. Now, if you look at the numbers, consolidated revenue saw an uptick of a solid 20% on a sequential basis and about 5% on a year-on-year basis, and this is much ahead of than as compared to what the street was working with. As far as margins are concerned, they've come in at 11.9% versus consensus estimate of 10.3% and versus 8.3% that the company had reported in the third quarter. So on a sequential and on a year-on-year basis and versus estimates, both EBITDA and EBITDA margins have also come in ahead of what the street was working with. Now, as I mentioned, realizations have declined on a sequential basis, but despite that, company has reported strong set. So realizations have seen a downtick of about 7% on a year-on-year basis and a decline of about 3% on a sequential basis. But volume growth has been very strong this time around. So saleable sale of steel stood at 5.33 million tons, which is an uptick of 20% QOQ and about 17% on a year-on-year basis. So volume growth is something that aided numbers in the quarter gone by. We will await more management commentary in the con call that is scheduled to happen later today. But for now, numbers look strong, much ahead of what the street was working with.
Thanks, Achesha, for those details. After sale, it's time to focus on Bajaj Auto. Bajaj Auto is all set to report its Q4 earnings, where both revenue and EBITDA are expected to rise 4% on a YOY basis. However, the company may see a drop in domestic sales. Srishti is here to tell us what is Street expecting this time.
So for Bajaj Auto this time around, let's have a look at how did the volumes played up in the quarter gone by. This time when we see it, and the total volumes were actually up 3.2% on a YY basis, but sequentially there was a decline of almost 10% in the overall volumes. But the export volumes was very much supportive. It's almost been a 19% jump is what we have seen on the export sales versus a decline of 7% in their domestic volumes on a YY basis. All this will definitely transpire into the numbers as well, because on a YY basis we are expecting a jump, while on a sequential basis a marginal single-digit decline is anticipated, but definitely the margins will be the key to watch out for, and that's expected to be steady. Let's talk numbers then. Firstly, on the revenue front, 11,914 crores is what we are expecting, so watch out for that. EBITDA is expected at 2,408 crores and margins just absolutely flat at 20.2%, what the company should report as per us. And lastly, on the profit figure, 1,990 crores is our expectation. So that's the expectation on the number front. But well, of course, going ahead in terms of the outlook, all eyes on the demand outlook, not just on the domestic market but as well as on the export outlook as well. Other than that, what kind of a PLI benefits the company has already started to get in. What is their outlook on the overall sales, their update on the capex plans, and lastly, the revival and the growth outlook for KTM as well is something that we will be watching out for. So that's the expectation from Bajaj Auto. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Srishti, for getting us all that we should expect from Bajaj Auto earnings that are due later in the day. But with that, we're completely timed out on this edition of Market Cafe. It's a wrap. It's a goodbye from me and Ankur, but stay tuned to ET Now as the market takes all the action forward on the other side.
In association with SBI, be alert, be scam.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.